Welcome, friends. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us again this week. This is your channel, the Gnostic Institute of Esoteric Magic. And today we bring to an end our seminar on the topic of meditation. Our last lesson is titled Enigmas. And this one is based on lessons learned from the life story of Master Tieh Shan as part of our scope today. By the time that we're done with this lesson, you're going to see why is it that pleasant spiritual experiences can actually trap you in your progress, and how is it that we can learn to cultivate some radical degree of alertness so that we can be constantly aware, constantly perceiving. One thing that Samael does for us in this particular lesson is that he gives us a secret on how to move forward with continuous mindfulness during ordinary daily activities. And how is it that methodical, disciplined, gradual efforts, as in think yourself of polishing apparel, it triggers sudden internal liberation. So let's take a look at the story of Master Tieh Shan. And in this biography, Tieh Shan states that he learned about Buddhism when he was around 13 years old. At the age of 18, he became a priest, and he read a thesis on advanced meditation where he came across this powerful mantra Wu. On a fourth night, after being practicing intensely with the mantra Wu, he started sweating profusely all throughout his body, and he felt both light and comfortable. And as he was experiencing this at a physical level, he woke up before sunrise, and he says, Watao made itself present. Watao, he says, was with me everywhere. Let's remember that Watao is a koan. Watao is that very enigmatic condition that is brought into the mind to stop the mind from its constant projections. So Tieh Shan continues and he says, on March 20th, he had been meeting with Master Yen, and Master Yen told him, sit up straight, freshen your mind as if you were before a 10,000-foot precipice, and concentrate in your Watao. Work like this for 7 days and you will reach self-realization. For 7 days. So Tieh Shan started this work, and he said, I started improving. On the third day, I became unconscious of everything around me. One day, I got the sensation I was split, and I felt stretched up 10,000 feet. And so he asked Master Yen, what is this? Is this what I am supposed to be experiencing? And Master Yen said, it is not this. Keep working. And so Master Yen cited some words of the Dharma. He said, to spread and glorify their noble needs, the Buddhas and the patriarchs must receive a blow to the neck. And at the moment that he asked why, he remembered. If you return your bones to your father and your flesh to your mother, where are you? At that moment, he remembered having been asked that very same question before. And now, as he revisited that question, there was no doubt. And so he went to see Master Meng Sha. When and where can we consider our Zen work completed? Said the master. Tieh Shan could not answer. And so Master Meng said, keep working in dhyana. And so he kept meditating until he reached a profound subtleness. And then he went again to Master Wang. And Master Wang asked him, what is your original face? And kicked him out of the room and closed the door. Master Meng, being a very profound Zen Buddhist, a very intense Zen master, he said, this is as polishing a pearl. The more you polish, the purest it becomes. And so when Tieh Shan attempted to answer the question, the master said, something is missing. And then one day, missing came to his mind, and he felt his mind and his body split up. Tieh Shan says that he started laughing, and he jumped off the seat to go see Master Meng. And he said, what am I missing? And Master Meng slapped him 3 times. And so Tieh Shan prostrated. And Master Meng said, "Dear Tieh Shan, it has taken you long to achieve this." Let's always keep in mind that the lives of the masters are always lived in symbols. And that is so that when we learn about their lives, as we come across the symbols that they lived through, that we can extract the deep, profound knowledge that exists behind everything that they say and everything that they do. But one thing that we can take away from Tieh Shan is the power of singular focus. What we learn from Tieh Shan is that meditation is not just something that we do for 10 or 15 or 20 minutes by sitting on some comfortable cushion. What Tieh Shan is telling us is that meditation requires of continuous and homogeneous integration into life. We must be able to meditate when we're sitting, but we must also be able to carry that degree of profound awareness in our daily activities as well. Tieh Shan carried with himself the mantra Wu. And he did that when he was walking, when he was making his bed, when he was cooking, when he was eating, when he was traveling to go see the masters. And what can we do about this? What is it that Tieh Shan is teaching us that we can apply in our lives? Well, we must learn to maintain some constant thread of awareness. This degree of awareness is something that we must learn to carry throughout our ordinary lives. Some people may refer to this as moving meditation. But in reality, this is an esoteric, an internal, passive exercise. And Samael has already given us these exercises. The first one is the key of SOL, in which he teaches us how is it that we can empower the consciousness so that we can split that attention into the subject, the object, and the location. Asking ourselves consistently, where are we? Am I in my physical body? Am I in the astral plane? That we can pull our finger, leap with the intent of floating. Have the attention, observe the subject so that it can determine what is it that the senses are perceiving? What is it that these things mean? From where are these things coming from? Have the attention focus on the object so that we can perceive what are those external things that our senses are indeed perceiving. And the other thing that Samael teaches us is the key of discernment, where we must make the effort to be constantly asking ourselves, what am I doing here? What is this place? Where am I? We build these habits while in the vigil state, and we bring the habits into the sleep state. We repeat them in the astral plane, and suddenly we are finding ourselves awakening in the astral plane itself. But we can experience the force of countertransference. Countertransference will never make itself wait, because nature, Samael has made this very clear, nature has no vested interest in seeing you or me or anyone being liberated. Nature needs us here and now for the sake of satisfying its own economy. Our psychic states, our psychological states, our emotional states, they all contribute something into the economy of nature. From giving rocks the consistency that rocks have to giving roses the thorns that roses have today. So what can we do to break through this force of countertransference, that we know that there is something that we can expect? Well, we must be aware that making use of the key of SOL, of the key of discernment, of these many other practices that Samael gives us is very important, because we are still under that philosophical curse in which our senses are very weak. Sometimes they perceive, but because there is so much ego, those many receptors of the mind are congested with the interference of the ego. Sometimes we cannot even trust exactly what we're seeing, because sometimes it could be literal, sometimes it could be a symbol. On this effect of countertransference that we should anticipate, we know for a fact that our psychological trainer is going to consistently bring different tests, ordeals, difficulties for us to engage and to demonstrate that we are indeed attaining some degree of mastery. And what can we say about the original sin? These sexual temptations will never stop happening. More so in these days where all of this imagery is so available everywhere we go in our mobile devices. The mind, the sexuality, the poor flow of our sexual creative energies into the incorrect centers. This is something that we must become aware. And again, the key of discernment and the key of SOL will tremendously help us to develop this power of that singular focus. But Tieh Shan also teaches us that deep practice has an effect. Deep spiritual practice will alter our perceptions, the ones through the senses, and our somatic awareness. This lesson that we get from Master Tieh Shan, when he's speaking about an undescribable or indescribable ecstasy and a detached joy, and the master's coming back and telling them, no, it's not that, you must continue to work. We will see that at times we will sit and meditate, and it will not be uncommon to notice sensations in the body, to see lights, feel vibrations and warmth, etc. But what the masters are doing here with Tieh Shan is telling him that we must remain aware and not fall into the trap. This is a trap that comes from our own psychological trainer, trapped by these quote-unquote spiritual experiences that come across as pleasant sensations. The idea of these phenomena, when we suddenly start sweating during a meditation, or we feel that we're floating, or we just see these beings that are standing next to us, etc. These could be signs of an altered consciousness. But we must tell you this: the masters know of our struggle. The masters know how difficult it is for us to develop concentration. They know how difficult it is to walk this path in the condition that we find ourselves today. And so, the masters are not going to deliberately interrupt us with things that are going to distract us. They're not going to be appearing in some way that distracts you from your meditation, from the ability for you to experience the illuminating void. Because they know that the one expansive experience that we can go through is emancipating the consciousness and experiencing the void itself. So they will not show up and create distractions. The ego is very capable, and the whole of our sexual creative power is available today to the ego. So all of these pleasant sensations, the sweat, the floating, the lights, the vibrations, etc., we must take that with a grain of salt. If we are not deliberately skeptical about these experiences, we start opening the door into very complex defects of mythomania and grandeur. Suddenly you feel that you're awake and that you're a master, when in reality, still walking this path with the rest of us. So the masters know of our struggle. We must make the most to safeguard our creative powers, to work, those of you who have been given the ability to work intimately in that flaming forge of Vulcan, eliminating those defects. Those of you who do not have that, you can also work on the transmutation, whether it's through pranayama and hamsa, and make of that energy something very useful, available for your inner work. And that way, through the consciousness, empower the intimate Christ to manifest. Work with that inner Christ so that everything that happens according to the will of the law, so that it is your being the one who is in charge of the activities. When you sing mantras, that the being is the one chanting those mantras so that they resonate throughout the 7 dimensions of nature. And so the essence of the being starts fully manifesting. From Tieh Shan, we also learned that it is necessary for us to tear down the intellect. He got questions like, what is your original face? Questions like, if you return your bones to your father and your flesh to your mother, then what will you be? These are riddles that cannot be solved by logical, habitual human thoughts. There is no mortal logic that is able to answer these questions. These are there with a purpose. And these koans, these wataos, they are there to exhaust the intellectual mind until it cracks open, until it resolves this matter of existential doubt, so that when the ego falls on its knees, the consciousness can escape and experience the vastness, the plenitude of the being itself. All of these koans, they create a paradox. The paradox forces the bypassing of the ego. It forces the stopping the function of the analytical mind, and it forces you as a practitioner relying on the consciousness to go into a deeper intuitive level of reality, where the consciousness itself is capable of experiencing that faculty that is called the instinctive perception of the cosmic truths. That is a faculty of the consciousness. But remember, countertransference. The ego will strive to keep you bound to ideas, bound to concepts, bound to beliefs. You will end up with fixed ideas, thinking that things can only happen in one way, etc. This is all the ego itself. And so we must invoke of the power of our Divine Mother to see the elimination of this defect that only happens through that serpentine power of our individual and particular Mother Kundalini. She can do that, but we must ask of her to help eliminate these particular defects. And so, radical alertness, sense of urgency. This is what Tieh Shan shares with us. And how is it that his master, Meng Shan, teaches him how to do this? By giving him that statement: sit up straight. Refresh your mind as if you were standing on the edge of a 10,000-foot precipice. If we bring that into an exercise of meditation, that type of meditation would require of us to be on a state of alertness, not to be falling asleep, not to be in a state of dreamy relaxation. Samael tells us we need a balance between the states of agasya and pistis, between the waking and the sleep state, 50-50. That is absolutely necessary. That imagery of the precipice tells us the absolute presence of a mind that must be there, but it is not the mind of the ego. It is that expression of the innermost, directly through the consciousness itself. When we lose focus, well, if you imagine yourself standing at the verge of a 10,000-foot precipice, the moment you lose focus, you fall. For us, that 10,000-foot precipice must be seen as that very thin line and that 50-50 balance that we must maintain between being alert and awake and allowing the body to fall asleep. Because then at those moments, the ethereal body can help do that neural network realignment. It will take the plasticity of the mind and help rearrange those neural connections in ways that lead us into more and more conducive experiences. This is a matter of deep physical relaxation with an intense, sharp presence of the consciousness right there. Because there is a gift that comes from this. And the gift is handed to us by our own internal trainer. That gift is the silence of the mind. It is the deep contemplative experience that comes from that expansion into the illuminating void. And the experience of the illuminating void that Samael is encouraging us to experience is a sample of what is to return back into the Garden of Eden. So, dear friends, this is what we wanted to share with you today as we bring to a close this seminar on meditation. We are so grateful for your participation. Thank you so much for walking this path with us. We are always so grateful for your time. May all beings be happy. Have a good night.